3 terrifying true fishing horror stories. Story 1. The Whispering Waters. Jake had always found solace in the mountains, seeking refuge from the chaos of city life. For him, there was no better way to recharge than to spend a weekend fishing at a secluded lake, far away from the hustle and bustle. When he suggested a trip to a remote lake, his girlfriend, Maggie reluctantly agreed, hoping to enjoy the natural beauty and bond over their shared love of the outdoors. They set off early on a Friday morning, the sun rising over the horizon and casting golden rays on the winding road. As they drove deeper into the mountains, the trees grew taller and denser, creating a canopy that filtered the light and transformed the world into a serene, green paradise. Maggie enjoyed the scenery, but a sense of foreboding began to creep in, an instinct she couldn't shake. Upon arriving at the lake, the couple was greeted by a breathtaking view. The water sparkled like diamonds under the sun, surrounded by towering pines and rugged cliffs. However, as they stepped out of the car, Maggie noticed an unusual silence. The chirping of birds and rustling of leaves were conspicuously absent, replaced by a heavy stillness that sent a chill down her spine. Jake, determined to catch the elusive trout he had heard tales about, quickly set up their gear. Maggie helped, trying to shake off her unease. As they prepared to fish, she could see the excitement in Jake's eyes, but her instinct warned her to be cautious. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" she asked hesitantly. "Come on, it's going to be great. Just look at this place," Jake replied, a wide grin on his face. He didn't seem to notice the eerie atmosphere, his mind already set on catching the biggest fish of his life. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the water, they began to fish. Hours passed, and the silence was punctuated only by the occasional splash of water. Maggie felt increasingly uneasy, her eyes darting around as the shadows deepened. "Jake, let's just head back. I am starting to feel weird about this place," she urged. "Just a little longer. I can feel it, Maggie. I know there's a big one out there," Jake insisted, casting his line again. That night, as they set up camp, the tranquility of the lake began to shift. The wind picked up, and a low fog rolled in from the water, shrouding the landscape in an eerie veil. Strange noises echoed around them, whispers carried by the breeze that seemed to beckon from the depths of the lake. Maggie's heart raced as she tried to dismiss her fears. "It's just the wind," she told herself. After dinner, they sat by the fire, the crackling flames the only source of warmth, against the chilling night air. Maggie had to engage Jake in conversation, but his focus was solely on fishing. "I am going to catch that big trout tonight," he said with determination. "LLC. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, and Maggie shivered as she turned to look at the water. It seemed to shimmer unnaturally, as if something was lurking just beneath the surface. "Jake, did you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" he replied, irritation creeping into his tone. "It's just the lake, Maggie. Relax." Feeling dismissed, Maggie decided to explore a bit, hoping to clear her mind. As she wandered toward the shoreline, she stumbled upon an old fishing lure half buried in the mud. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, intricate carvings etched into the metal and a strange ball that pulsed with an eerie glow. "Jake, come look at this," she called, excitement and dread intertwining. But when she turned around, he was gone. Panic surged through her as she called out his name, her voice echoing in the silence. "Jake, where are you?" But the only response was the gentle lapping of water against the shore. Frantically, she searched the campsite, but there was no sign of him. The whispers intensified, now sounding almost like voices. "Maggie," they called, drawing her closer to the water's edge. Fear gripped her heart as she stepped back, realizing the lake was pulling her in, its depths dark and inviting. As she stumbled away from the shore, her foot caught on something submerged in the mud. She looked down to see Jake's fishing rod, lying abandoned. "Jake!" She screamed again, but her voice was swallowed by the night. Desperate, she decided to check the boat. As she approached, her breath caught in her throat. It floated adrift, empty and silent. "No, no, no," she whispered, panic surging within her. She could feel the weight of something sinister in the air, a presence that hung over the lake like a shroud. Maggie climbed into the boat, scanning the water for any sign of him. The fog thickened, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the mist, standing on the ite shore. Jake! She shouted, hope igniting within her. But as she paddled toward the figure, it dissolved into shadows, leaving her alone on the lake. Fear twisted her stomach as she realized the truth. The lake was alive, a malevolent force that had claimed her boyfriend. In the depths of her despair, the whispers rose to a fever pitch. Join us, they beckoned, a siren call that threatened to pull her under. Maggie struggled against the mounting terror, desperately searching for a way to escape. She knew she had to leave, but the water began to swell around her, threatening to capsize the boat. Just as she thought she might drown in despair, the whispers shifted to a chilling chant, repeating Jake's name. Jake! Please! She cried, her heart breaking. The boat rocked violently, and she was thrown into the icy water. The lake engulfed her, cold fingers wrapping around her body as she fought to stay afloat. In the chaos, she thought she heard Jake's voice, faint but clear, calling for her. Maggie, help me. As she gasped for air, her limbs grew heavy, pulled down by the lake's dark embrace. Just before the darkness consumed her, a flash of light illuminated the depths, revealing shadows of past fishermen, their faces twisted in terror. In that moment, she understood. The lake was a predator, luring them in with promises of peace, only to ensnare them forever. Maggie's last thought was a plea for escape as the water closed in, swallowing her whole. The next morning, the campsite lay silent. Jake's boat drifted on the lake, alone and forgotten. The whispers faded into the wind, leaving no trace of the couple who had dared to disturb the stillness of the silent lake. Story 2, The Curse of the Deep Lake. In a small town nestled among dense forests and towering mountains, tales of a mysterious deep lake loomed over the community like a dark cloud. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the lake's chilling history. A fisherman had vanished without a trace decades ago, his last catch rumored to be a monster so large it could swallow a man whole. Intrigued and undeterred by the warnings, Mark, a seasoned angler, decided to uncover the truth for himself. On a crisp autumn morning, with the sun barely peeking over the horizon, Mark packed his fishing gear and set off for the lake. The air was thick with anticipation, and he felt a strange excitement as he drove along the winding roads, surrounded by the vibrant colors of fall. The deeper he ventured into the woods, the more he could sense the weight of the stories surrounding him. Upon reaching the lake, Mark was struck by its beauty. The water shimmered like glass, reflecting the vibrant foliage around it. But beneath this tranquil facade, he could feel an unsettling energy, a sense of foreboding, that prickled the back of his neck. Ignoring his instincts, he added his gear and launched his small boat onto the still surface. As he paddled to the center of the lake, the eerie stillness enveloped him. The only sounds were the gentle lapping of water against the hull and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Mark cast his line, hoping for a big catch and eager to prove the legends wrong. Hours passed with little action. The lake was unusually quiet, and the peaceful atmosphere soon began to feel oppressive. He glanced around, catching glimpses of shadows beneath the surface. Each ripple sent a shiver through him, but he shook off the feeling and remained focused. Just as he began to lose hope, his line jerked violently. Heart racing, Mark grabbed the rod, and felt an enormous weight pulling him. Finally! He exclaimed, adrenaline surging through his veins. He began to reel in his catch, the struggle invigorating him. As he pulled the fish closer, his excitement turned to horror. The creature was massive, unlike anything he had ever seen. Its scales shimmered with an unnatural iridescence, and its eyes glowed with a strange intensity. But it was not just the fish that terrified him. As he reeled it in, he noticed something unsettling. The creature's belly was distended, and within it were remnants of clothing, a shirt, a shoe, and something that looked suspiciously like a human bone. What the hell? Mark whispered, his heart pounding in his chest. Panic began to creep in as he realized he was not alone. The shadows beneath the water grew darker, swirling ominously around his boat. Suddenly, the calm surface of the lake erupted in chaos. Waves crashed violently against the sides of the boat, tossing him around. No. What's happening? He shouted, clinging to the edges as he fought to keep his balance. The whispers began, soft at first, then escalating into a deafening cacophony. Join us, they echoed from the depths, a haunting melody that chilled him to the bone. Mark's heart raced as he realized the truth. The lake was alive, a predator demanding its due. He scrambled to control the boat, panic overtaking him. "I need to get out of here," he shouted to no one in particular, frantically paddling toward the shore. Just as he turned the boat, a massive wave surged up from beneath, knocking him off his feet. The fishing rod flew from his grasp as the water roared, dragging him into the depths. "Help!" he screamed, desperation clawing at his throat. He fought against the icy grip of the lake, struggling to surface. The whispers transformed into anguished cries, a chorus of lost souls reaching for him. One of us now, one of us," they wailed, chilling his blood. Final. Lie breaking the surface, Mark gasped for air, but the horror was far from over. He spotted a shadow beneath the water, something massive and sinister, lurking just out of sight. "No!" he cried, kicking furiously as the water churned around him, pulling him back down. With every ounce of strength, he swam toward the shore, his limbs heavy and exhausted. Just as he thought he might drown, he felt solid ground beneath his feet. Mark stumbled onto the bank, collapsing in a heap, panting and shaking with fear. He looked back at the lake, its surface once again eerily calm. The whispers faded, leaving only the gentle sound of water lapping at the shore. Mark crawled away from the water, his heart still racing as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. Days turned into weeks, but the lake remained unchanged, a malevolent force that had claimed countless lives. Each night, Mark would return, standing at the edge, haunted by visions of the creature and the souls trapped beneath. He shared his experience with anyone who would listen, warning them of the curse that lingered in the depths. But many shrugged off his warnings, drawn to the lake's beauty, eager for a chance to fish in its waters. One stormy night, as he sat in his cabin, Mark's thoughts drifted back to the lake. A sudden urge compelled him to return. Ignoring the cold knot of fear in his stomach, he grabbed his fishing gear and set off into the darkness. Arriving at the lake, lightning illuminated the sky, casting an eerie glow over the water. The air was thick with tension, and Mark's heart raced as he launched his boat once more. "What am I doing?" he muttered to himself, but the pull of the lake was irresistible. As he cast his line, thunder rumbled ominously overhead. The first few minutes passed without incident, but soon, the water began to stir. Shadows danced beneath the surface, and the whispers returned, echoing around him. Join us, they beckoned, a chilling invitation. In that moment, Mark knew he had made a grave mistake. The water swelled violently, and he felt the familiar tug at his line. Fear gripped him as he reeled in the catch, but this time, it was different. The fish was even larger, its eyes glinting with a sinister light. Desperate to escape, Mark tried to paddle away, but the lake was relentless. Waves crashed against the boat, threatening to capsize him. "No! Let me go!" he shouted, his voice lost in the chaos. Suddenly, the water erupted, and the creature emerged once more, a colossal fish, its gaping maw revealing rows of jagged teeth. It lunged at him, and Mark screamed, the sound echoing through the storm. In a final act of defiance, he threw his fishing rod into the depths, a sacrifice to appease the beast. "Take it. Just let me go," he pleaded, but the creature was undeterred. As it surged toward him, the whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices drowning out his cries. Join us, they wailed, wrapping around him like a shroud. Mark felt the icy grip of the water pulling him down, dragging him into the abyss. As darkness enveloped him, he understood the truth. The lake was a predator, a guardian of secrets best left buried. In that moment, he surrendered to the depths, becoming yet another lost soul trapped in the curse of the deep lake. Years later, locals would still tell the tale of Mark, the fisherman who dared to challenge the lake. His story became another warning, a testament to the darkness that lay beneath the surface, waiting patiently for the next unwary soul to cast their line. Story 3, The Fisherman's Bargain. In a coastal town steeped in maritime lore, stories of Old Man Jacob echoed through the streets. He was a legendary fisherman, known for his extraordinary catches and even stranger tales of bargains struck with the sea. Intrigued, Sarah, a budding marine biologist, sought him out. Hoping to learn from his experience. On a blustery afternoon, she approached Jacob's weathered cabin, nestled on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. The salty breeze whipped through her hair as she knocked on the door. After a moment, it creaked open, revealing an old man with in bleached skin and eyes that sparkled with mischief. "Ah, a young lady seeking wisdom?" he said with a knowing smile. Come in. Let me tell you about the sea." As they sat on his porch, Sarah listened intently as Jacob recounted tales of his fishing adventures. He spoke of monstrous catches, storms that appeared out of nowhere, and the spirits that roam the ocean. The sea has a way of claiming those who underestimate its power, he warned, his expression growing serious. Intrigued, Sarah asked about his most memorable catch. Jacob leaned back, a glint of nostalgia in his eyes. It was a night much like this, he began. The ocean was calm, and I felt a presence beneath the waves, something ancient and powerful. He described how he had caught a massive fish, unlike anything he had ever seen, only to find remnants of previous fishermen inside its belly. I knew then that the sea demanded a price for its treasures, he warned. And I made a bargain I regretted ever since. Determined to prove her skills, Sarah insisted on joining him for a fishing trip. Jacob hesitated but eventually agreed, reminding her of the pact he had made with the sea long ago. Be careful, he said ominously. The ocean has a way of ensnaring the unwary. As they set out early the next morning, the ocean was a dazzling blue, the sun rising like a fiery orb on the horizon. They cast their lines into the water, the rhythmic bobbing of the boat lulling them into a sense of security. Hours passed without a bite, and Sarah began to feel uneasy as Jacob stared intently at the horizon. Dark clouds gathered ominously, casting shadows over the water. We should head back, Jacob urged, his voice tinged with urgency. Just as they prepared to leave, a massive wave crashed against the boat, sending them both sprawling. What the hell? Sarah gasped, scrambling to her feet. Suddenly, a colossal shadow surged beneath the boat, swirling around them. Sarah's heart raced as Jacob shouted, "Hold on!" The ocean roared to life, waves crashing violently as the creature emerged from the depths, a monstrous fish with glowing eyes and rows of razor-sharp teeth. It was the very thing Jacob had caught years ago, the soul of the fisherman trapped within its monstrous form. The wisp returned, echoing around them. Bargain, bargain, they chanted, a chorus of lost souls demanding payment. In a moment of desperation, Sarah grabbed the fishing rod and cast her line deep into the water, hoping to ensnare the creature. The line tightened, and she felt the weight of the ocean pulling her down. Jacob, she cried, panic rising in her chest. But he was paralyzed with fear, his eyes wide as he realized the truth. The creature was demanding its due, and they were both in its grasp. Let it go, Jacob shouted, desperation in his voice. You can, win. With every ounce of strength, Sarah pulled against the current, but the creature's grip was unrelenting. You must break the pact, Jacob yelled, the weight of his choices crashing down upon him. In a final act of defiance, Sarah released the line, watching as the creature retreated, its whispers fading into the depths. The ocean calmed, the storm dissipating, leaving them adrift in eerie silence. Jacob looked at her, gratitude mingled with sorrow. You freed us, he said, his voice heavy with regret. But the ocean's price is steep. They returned to shore, forever changed by their encounter. Sarah vowed never to fish again, haunted by the knowledge of what lay beneath the surface. Jacob, too, would carry the burden of his choices, knowing that some bargains are better left unmade.